Understanding Mother Stories podcast with Adeline Dubreuil. Your 10 minutes to talk about mothering and matrescence. Hello, Mama. The holidays are coming, and for some of us, it is a moment of pure bliss. It's joyful. It's magical. It feels like you have the most amazing food, the most amazing people around you. You feel great. Your children have, a lot of amazing, pleasant, joyful moments. And, it leaves you feeling a little sad that it's over, but it also leaves you feeling amazing because it replenished you for, the next little while, maybe the next year until your next Christmas with the people you love. But for many other people and for certain mothers, as we enter adulthood and we navigate motherhood and either hosting the holidays at our place or going to our in-laws or going to in our own families to respect those traditions, it does not necessarily feel as good. The reason why is, multiple. Just there's almost as many situations as there are families all around the world. But I think that for some people, the other side of the spectrum is that it actually makes you feel depleted, like it was hard, that you were there for people pleasing because those are the traditions and the traditions don't change, that the people you were surrounded with were not necessarily people that you actually really like. You can love them because, for example, they're blood relatives, they're family, but you might not like them. And maybe you don't have anything in common with these people, so it makes it very heavy, very stressful. You might even have the kind of gathering where there are such differences of values and opinions that it leads to conflict, and it's actually more depleting you than it's bringing the joy that the holidays should bring. And when we talk about bringing the light into the darkness in the winter holidays, but for some, the darkness is actually to have to go through those gatherings, and it's hard. And, it's easy to say, well, maybe you should just tell people off, or maybe you should just not go. And part of me would want to tell you this, and we'll talk about this in a minute. But I think that there are an array of different things that can be done to try to reclaim some of our joy through the holidays. And I think that when you become a mother, there are maybe obligations that come with motherhood during the holidays. I mean, yes, despite the fact that there's a whole lot of organization that is on us, just like in everyday life, and the holidays don't make it better, it makes it heavier sometimes. I think the fact that when you have children, people sometimes they want to gather with you, or maybe they don't want to see you because you have children, or maybe they want to see the children and they just make everything a big deal. And then you feel like you have to go to those big family meals, family gatherings. And it's not always easy because, yes, for some it's joyful, but for some it's hard. So today I just wanted to talk about what do we do when it's hard? Do you just keep doing it the way it's been done for decades or maybe centuries in your own family because it's tradition and we don't discuss tradition? But really, if it makes you feeling horrible and stressed, and it affects your mental health, your self-esteem, because some of those people you gather around are just not good for you, well, what can we do about it? And I wonder about this so much because I have seen things around me. I have seen, a lot of posts on social media talking about those situations where mothers are just like, I can't do this. It's so stressful. I don't want to go through the holidays. I love the lighting and the things with my children, but really the family gathering is the part that I would skip. And we don't because it's traditions, because we go to my in-laws, because we go to my parents, because I don't want to have those hard conversations. And this is what I want to mention today. It's how can we do shifts and changes in such a big traditional part of the year? So I feel like it's a spectrum, okay? You can go through micro changes that would be shifts to the macro changes, which would be literally saying no to some of the traditions that you feel are harmful for you and your family, and just make your own, which means you detach yourself from some of the people that you used to gather with and make your own thing. That's a macro change. That's going away from people who deplete you from the joy of the holidays. But let's talk also about the shifts, the micro changes we can do. So really, there's going to be as many situations as there are families all over the world. But what I have seen and heard from mothers in the past, so I'm going to focus on what I have heard from mothers. And I think that sometimes, does it feel so different when you're a mother than when you were younger? Like, for example, when you were younger, you loved those gatherings. They seemed amazing. You were gatherings with your, cousins or aunts and uncles, and it felt so great. And there were presents and food and things. And then you're an adult and you see it completely differently. And you bring your children and it feels so different. Why? Well, because I think adults try to make the magic for children around the holidays. Mothers make the magic for their children around the holidays. But we don't see it this way. We are not children anymore. Nobody's making the magic for us. And there are expectations that come for us from the people we gather with sometimes. And some of these expectations can go from if you host, what you have to do, the traditions, and maybe certain meals that have to be the same every year. Or maybe it's someone else hosting and you have to be there at a certain hour and you have to go with what happens in their house, in their home, right? And it doesn't necessarily fit your family's needs. So it's hard and it makes it harder. Maybe your children on that day are just so excited and then they meet with people that they don't see often. The routine is totally different. Maybe they even meet with people they don't know. So they dysregulate easily. It's the case with babies and toddlers a lot. It's sometimes the kids with older children as well. Definitely also with neurodivergent children. And for adults as well. Those holidays don't always meet our needs. So there are the ones where it's not going to meet your needs or the needs of your children, but it's just for a few hours. You can get through it and then you feel the relief once it's done. Or you are in a situation where it is so bad that you actually dread the holidays, you dread the gatherings, and year after year you keep going and you keep hurting yourself, your mental health, and your family. So it's not you. When I say you, it's not you. Of course, it's what's happening around you and what's imposed on you. And how can we make this different? So there are examples like, let's say you're invited somewhere and the food that is served is not necessarily to your taste, or your children don't eat anything and then it's just like a really hard day to go through. You're like 6 or 7 hours in a row at someone else's place and there's nothing for kids to eat. It doesn't fit what they eat and nobody wants to make any change because that's tradition. So how can we shift things there? Well, personally, I would offer to bring something. Either appetizers or maybe dessert. Because if you get to bring something, you feel like you're offering help and hopefully they'll take it. But also it means that what you bring, you'll like. And you can make it also so your children will like it. So you are 100% sure that at least you and your children will eat something. That's a micro change, a little shift. You're offering help, you're being kind to the person who's hosting, and you're making it a little bit easier on yourself. Micro changes like this can be done. It can also be that, what about this year? Someone else is host. So maybe usually you host and it's so heavy on you and the mental load and the organization is just way too much. Well, what about you ask your guest to bring something? What about they bring the appetizers or the dessert? And it's one less thing that is totally out of your list, of your to-do list, one less thing to organize, one less thing to buy, one less thing to do. And you get to, share that with the people you love. And hopefully, honestly, if the people you share that day with refuse to do so, maybe they're not the right people to spend that day with. But I do know when it comes to family, it is hard to, say no or discuss those things. Now, there are other changes that can just be like having hard conversations. Like if you go to your in-laws and you don't feel like you want to say something, well, maybe you should have a hard conversation with your partner so they can have the hard conversation with their family. You are a team. You should be on the same page. It might not be always exactly the same page, but for the sake of everyone's mental health and your children's routines and needs, maybe there are some shifts that can happen. So maybe it means that we're going to be there for the morning, opening the presents and lunch and a part of the afternoon, but we're going to go home at 6 p.m. because we want to have an evening that is respecting the routine and is going to make us feel like Christmas is finishing nicely, instead of constantly fighting and pushing and pushing and pushing our boundaries and our possibilities and feeling depleted and horrible and exhausted, and everybody's dysregulated and everybody ends up screaming or crying. It's just not enjoyable. And the holidays should be about joy, right? So those are all little micro changes that can be done. There can be so many others, and you might have ideas, and I would love to hear about them. So please let me know what changes you think you could bring, or maybe changes you have brought to your family that have made things easier to bring more joy into your holidays. Now, another thing that comes to macro change, and those are drastic changes, it's when you actually realize that the people you have been spending the holidays with are toxic people who don't respect you, who don't respect your children, who don't care, whose values and opinions are so different to the point that it makes this day horrible. Maybe those are the people you should separate from. And it is hard. It's like a divorce, but it's a divorce with family members instead of your spouse. And those are really, really hard conversations. And those are drastic changes. But I do think that in case where people lack respect towards you and your family, they can't see you for who you are. They can't even put their difference aside for a few hours in one day in the year, then those might not be your people. And it is hard to realize. And I am so sorry for everyone that is going through this or might have to make those separation happen. And my heart is with you if this is the case, because this can't be easy. And it just brings the holidays down. But I do really feel that if the holidays are affecting your mental health negatively, when you know your children are not actually going to enjoy it, or you're not going to enjoy it and nobody's going to enjoy it, can we make changes so then we can reclaim our time, our space around the holidays? Because we might not be the children who other people make magic for, but we are allowed to make our own magic for ourselves and for our families. Another thing that I see a lot around, and I hear a lot about the holidays, and right now it's the American Thanksgiving, but it was the Canadian Thanksgiving a couple of months ago, and now we're approaching Christmas. It's about meeting with people who, even if they're nice people, you just see them one time a year, it's fine. You're in their house, so it's hard to not follow their rules. You have to respect their house rules, right? But you are here with children, young children, neurodivergent children, just children. And things don't necessarily go as planned. They're very excited. It's not their daily routine, so their behavior might be a little erratic and different from the daily life. And then people are going to judge you for being that permissive parent who doesn't say no to their kids, who doesn't know how to put boundaries, who doesn't know how to do anything. And this is hard. And this is the moment to sometimes put your foot down and say, listen, this is my parenting. If we can't be around you the way we parent our children, we are happy to just go back home and do things our way. And that's a very hard conversation to have to, and a big boundary to put. Now, this brings me to some kind of a subject that I've seen a lot on social media for the past couple of years. And it's on the older generation that was a little bit more from a authoritarian kind of parenting. So authoritarian parenting is when the adult is the king, the adult says, so the child has to do. The child is often seen but not heard. We don't take the big meltdowns. We have rules, the child has to follow them. And there's no space for the child to actually be your child. And that's an authoritarian parenting. That's one extreme of the parenting spectrum. Now, in the middle of that parenting spectrum, we have many other kind of parenting, okay? So we have some labels for them. You can have respectful parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, all kinds of names. You don't have to label. You don't have to be part of one label. You do you based on your family, who you are, who your children are. But at the heart of all of this, there's going to be a conscious choice to bring respect to the child in their development where they are, which means knowing about the child's development. Connect with your child on a regular basis, which should be a daily basis. So you know your child and you know what to expect from them, and you know how to try to make boundaries and rules around who they are, around what your family feels like. In all this, there's respect. It means we respect the child where they're at, but it means we also teach the child how to respect other people and things around them. It comes with giving some freedom to the child to be, and some choices, but it also means knowing how many choices we can give to our children and how much we as adults have to reclaim boundaries and rules so everybody feels respected and so there's safety for everyone to actually grow and live in the same house together. Now, one thing that I hear a lot right now is people saying, all those gentle parents have failed their children are disrespectful, they don't know where boundaries are, they don't care for teachers, they don't care for anyone. The gentle parenting has failed the whole last generation of kids that we're seeing in schools right now. And to that, I'm going to say it's absolutely not true. Why? Because it's a narrative issue. Gentle parenting is meant of respect for the child, knowledge about child's development, meeting their needs, but also respect of the adult, because they're also human beings. It means connection between parents and children. It means making time for each other in a world that is asking us to work all the time and to have productivity all the time, and it's not easy. But it's also knowing when to say no, put boundaries and rules so everyone feels safe, respected, and so we can live all together and everyone can feel safe. That's part of gentle parenting. Gentle parenting is not saying yes all the time, letting the child decide on everything. The child can do whatever they want and the parent just go with the flow. That is not gentle parenting, that's permissive parenting. That's the total opposite of the spectrum of parenting. I explained to you earlier what authoritarian parenting was, when the adult is king and the child doesn't have a say. Well, permissive parenting is the contrary. The child is king. It does whatever they want. They do whatever they want. And the parents don't know how to say no. They don't know how to put boundaries. But what happens is that the children go wild and the children are not safe mentally, psychologically, and sometimes physically. There's no respect for anyone because you're actually not respecting the child, because the child in what they need, they need boundaries. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel safe, even if sometimes they fight and question them. And then each family is going to find which rule and which boundaries apply to them based on their values, opinions, and, daily life. We can always question other people's choices, okay? We can always do that, and everybody does it at some point or another. But at the end of the day, let's reframe the narrative that gentle parenting has failed a generation of kids. No. Gentle parenting is doing amazing things for children of this generation and amazing things for those gentle parents. And that's hard work to be a gentle parent. What has destroyed part of what's happening, what we see in schools, the disrespect, the violence, the abuse, and everything coming from children towards teachers, towards other adults, it's permissive parenting. That is harmful. That is totally different. And I really want to reframe this because I know this is a talk I've been having with other educators and neuropsychologists, like children's psychologists, around that discussion. Permissive parenting is harmful. Gentle parenting is not. And when you're going to be going to those family gatherings, people might be discussing and have opinions and unsolicited advice about how you parent your children. So then it's on you to either be able to say, well, this is actually how I parent. I choose this and that. But there's also being able to reframe what happens on holidays. The children are out of their routines. It's very exciting. There are gifts. There might be heat. There might be a lot of lights and noises and conversations and music and cousins, and we want to run around and we want to play and we want our children are going to dysregulate during these days. This is pretty much the way it works for everyone. So the way they see you parent on Christmas Day might not be the way you parent every day. And that might be what you want to reframe with people who are going to judge you and talk about your parenting during the holidays. So I really hope that it gives you strength to make decisions, to speak up for yourself, and to spend the joyful holidays that you and your family deserves. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Mama, for listening to this episode of Understanding Mother Stories podcast. You can find us on Instagram at ohmama world or on our website www.ohmama.ca.